So today's review is a pretty famous men's fragrance, which is Creed Green Irish Tweed. So this is pretty famous for multiple reasons. It's just kind of a classic men's scent. Apparently Cary Grant wore it, so you know it's pretty good. And also Creed is an extremely high quality, high class fragrance brand. So I'm gonna jump right into it and put a few sprays here. And immediately, you could tell this is something unique. So this came out in the 80s, I believe 1985. And since then, it's been a pretty prominent player in the fragrance industry. So the opening with this, you can already tell it's a kind of a blend of green notes plus something a little bit muskier. So there's actually not that many notes in this particular fragrance. It's pretty cut down and very refined, and the top notes are only lemon verbena and iris. So the lemon verbena, which obviously has kind of a citrusy note to it, you definitely get that right away in the opening. It's, very fresh, kind of juicy. Not as much as an actual orange or a lemon. This is more of an herbal citrus sort of thing. And at the same time, and of course the lemon verbena is very refreshing, but then you get a little bit of a different note from the iris. Iris is one of my favorite notes. I love it in some of the Dior Homme variations, like Dior Homme Intense or the original. They all have iris. This has iris. It's a really wonderful note to have because it's a little bit sweet, but I wouldn't label it as sweet. It's more of just a natural sort of note, which adds more complexity to the lemon verbena, and also a bit more strength to the lemon verbena, because lemon verbena is generally kind of a weaker note. It's actually surprisingly strong in this one, which I'm surprised about. But then moving on from those two notes, the middle note is only one note, which is violet leaf. So another kind of floral note here. The violet leaf, I would say, it's definitely there, but it's a little bit hidden under the lemon verbena because it's so prominent. Has that really sharp citrus note. And the violet leaf does add a little bit of greenery to this fragrance. Especially it contrasts against the iris and the lemon verbena at the same time and adds certain, kind of like you're standing in a garden or something, like a nice fresh garden, maybe after it rained, it's a little bit dewy, kind of that kind of smell, I suppose. But in general, compared to the first two notes, the violet leaf is pretty faint, I would say. Yeah, it's definitely kind of tucked under the iris and the lemon verbena. Then there's only two base notes, which is ambergris and sandalwood. So ambergris, I've talked about this in some of my other videos. It's kind of a strange musky note that comes from Wales, of all things. It's super musky, but after it dries, it becomes it's still musky, but a little bit more powdery, a little bit, smoother. Then, of course, the sandalwood, which is a very solid, very popular wood note, to add a little bit of texture, some dryness, some more intrigue to pretty much any fragrance. Now, the ambergris is very strong. Now, there's some ambergris fragrances that I've smelled that are a bit too strong, but I think this one does it well. It doesn't go overboard. It's not ridiculously musky. I would say it does a really good job of grounding and warming the fragrance, because just lemon verbena, just the iris, just the violet leaf, those are all pretty cold, fresh, very natural notes, very light. But then the ambergris comes in, which of course is a very heavy note, very musky, and it grounds everything. So, those lighter notes don't just float away, so there's no longevity. So this holds up everything in place, a very nice foundation here. And the sandalwood does the same thing, just a little bit on a lighter level, and of course more of a woodsy way of doing things instead of musky. The ambergris is a little bit stronger than the sandalwood. You could definitely, that musk comes through stronger than the wood notes, but the sandalwood does still have a certain, you could tell it's there. It's more in the background, but you could still tell it's there. Like I said, it adds a little bit of texture and character to the fragrance, but I do like the prominence of the ambergris because when it blends with the lemon verbena, of course there's this really interesting contrast between the fresh citrus note and then the very musky, heavy note. So this allows the fragrance to really evolve over time. The sandalwood and the ambergris become stronger as time goes on, and the lighter notes become lighter. But in general, even though there's, very few notes in this entire fragrance, it's very well made, very well balanced, and you don't really need more notes than this. Because every note does such a specific thing and plays such an important part in the entire fragrance. You don't need to add, any extra floral notes or any extra wood notes or musk notes. Everything works here, so you don't need to add anything extra. And it's a pretty prominent scent. Now, it's not one of, it's not like a super modern, hyper, just like going everywhere, invading everyone's nostrils. This is a bit more toned back with the projection, but I would say that's better because this is more of a formal fragrance. And usually formal fragrances, they're not going to have ridiculous projection. They're going to be a bit more subtle, a bit more sophisticated. It's not like a party fragrance like Versace Eros trying to reach every corner of the room, that sort of thing. So besides the projection, which I would say is moderate, it's good. People around you can definitely smell you, but not people across the room. So, just kind of an intermediate projection. Now the longevity, it's mainly with the ambergris and the sandalwood that's going to stick around the longest. I would say overall longevity is probably 6 to 7 hours, nothing crazy, but again, more on the moderate side. And this isn't a crazy fragrance. This is more of a formal, more sophisticated sort of fragrance, and it's unique. There's not too many fragrances that smell like this. This is fresh and a little bit musky without being too weak or too, crazy beast mode. This is very, very nicely balanced overall. So I would say this is best for wearing in most occasions, but erring on the side of course, more special occasions because this is pretty expensive. You don't want to waste it by going to the grocery store in this. But in general, just by the way it smells, you could pretty much wear it anytime, anywhere. Again, just because it has those fresh notes, those musky notes, so it really can adapt and evolve depending on where you are, what time, the temperature, all that. So overall, this is a really, really nice fragrance for men. And I would almost say it could act as a unisex scent because it is just on the more natural side. It's not too musky, not too sweet, kind of in the middle. But it is a men's fragrance in general. So that's pretty much all I have to say about Creed Green Irish Tweed. If you liked this review, of course, leave a like, maybe comment, maybe subscribe, and I make videos throughout the week, so stick around for those.